Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to today's webinar on starting year-end giving season planning with Arnold. Today's webinar was made possible by our friends at Neon One. My name is Delaney. I'm the Director of Partnerships here at Nonprofit Hub and Do More Good. We're so glad that you're joining us today. As everyone gets logged in and comfortable, please introduce yourselves. Let us know what organization you work for, maybe what you do and where you're joining us from. We like to get started with an icebreaker, and in the spirit of 4th of July, I want to know, what is your favorite Independence Day tradition? Do you always go see fireworks? Do you enjoy time out on the water? Maybe you go camping. My parents own a lake house, so we always go to the lake house as a family. And this year, I really want to go to this town in Upper Michigan called Traverse City because they have a cherry festival every year, and they have like the whole air show that has like what is it called? What is the flyover? Abby or Rod, do you know what I'm talking about? The Blue Angels.
Oh, yeah.
The Blue Angels flyover. Yes, yes.
Random fact, one of my high school friends was in the Blue Angels for a while. Now he's like a trainer, so it's kind of like a Top Gun guy. It's pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's why I might be in the mood to go to the air show, is because I just watched Top Gun on Father's Day.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. What about you two? What are you guys doing?
Go ahead.
So my group of friends, we all live in the same neighborhood, and we always spend 4th of July at one of our friends' pools. So we get there like in the late morning after breakfast, and then we get home long after the sun is down. And I'm in Florida, so it's the only way to be outside and not risk stroke. So that's here.
Yeah, I'm in Nashville, and it gets hot, obviously, but it's been really nice the last few days, and I'm hoping that holds over for the weekend and the 4th. But got tickets to a soccer game, and just gonna hang out with my family. So it should be a fun, just relaxing weekend and long weekend, right?
Nice. Yeah. Yes. Hopefully a long needed weekend. I see a lot of people are going to fireworks. I saw someone is going to, their tradition is horse racing, which is super cool. Let's see, barbecues. Yes, definitely barbecuing. Let's see, lots of pool parties. What is everyone else doing for 4th of July? Oh, I love the parades. Becca decorating a float. Oh, that's cute. Okay, well, we'll continue camping. Yes. Caroline, where are you camping? For those of you just joining in, we're about to learn why your year-end planning should start now and how to create a compelling campaign that drives donations each year. Before we jump into today's content, I want to take a minute and just go over a few housekeeping items. The webinar will be recorded. You'll hear from us later today with the full recording and the presentation with other resources. We always do a giveaway at Nonprofit Hub, so if you attend for the full hour, utilize the chat and answer all of the poll questions, you'll be in the running to win one of our newest Do More Good baseball caps. This is North Face, and it's super cute, and it looks good on everyone. You are encouraged to engage with us throughout the session, use the chat and answer the poll questions. We will welcome anyone's question, and there'll be a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. So we'll keep track of those all on the back end throughout the session, and then Rod will do his best to answer all of them at the end. Quick shout out to our platform partner, FireSpring. FireSpring creates tools and resources that make fundraising easier and more effective. From mission-driven websites to engaging marketing programs that work, they have tools that you need to make sure your nonprofit shines. Today's webinar was made possible by Neon One, and today we're grateful to welcome Abigail Jarvis to the stage. Welcome, Abby.
Thanks. I'm part of the team over at Neon One. And we're really excited to be the sponsor for this week's webinar for a lot of different reasons. One, we know how important year-end fundraising is. And two, it gives us opportunity to mention something that we know a lot of nonprofits kind of wrestle with. So we're a technology company, but we know that technology is only a small piece of what you do at your organization. There is so much that goes into running a successful fundraising program, so much that goes into managing your donors. And your tech is really only as good as the strategy behind it, which is why today's session is so important. A tech tool, as much as we would love it to, can't build a strategy for you. So while we have the software that helps you manage your fundraising and your constituents and supporters, even things like your grants, we also try to make it a priority to offer educational resources and ways to connect with other fundraisers. So our goal is to help people be successful, and part of that is our products, and part of it is all the educational resources we have. So one of the best ways to grow is to understand how donors behave, both your donors and donors all over the country. And in the past, getting a comprehensive view of what donors are doing has been kind of challenging. But now that data is not only accessible, it's also interactive. So we've got a new tool called the Neon One Donor Impact Data Hub that can give you a good look at what donors are up to these days. So check it out for yourself. We'll drop a link for you. It can help you understand all of the questions that you might have about donors, who they are, what they're doing, when they're giving. And you can use this to kind of inform some of your year-end fundraising strategies. So you can click right there to visit the hub. We hope you love it. We hope it's inspiring to you. We hope it's useful to you. And if you have been evaluating some nonprofit tech solutions, you think now might be a good time to get started looking, I'd welcome you to check out our website. We're at neon1.com. But other than that, enjoy the webinar, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Abby. I'd also love to introduce the teacher of today's session. Rod Arnold is the founder and CEO of Leading Good, an agency dedicated to helping nonprofits and social enterprises innovate and grow. Prior to founding Leading Good, Rod served as COO of Charity Water, a nonprofit organization bringing clean and safe drinking water to people in developing nations. Rod has a 20-plus year track record of successfully building nonprofits as well as purpose-driven brands. Welcome, Rod. We're very excited to have you back.
Thanks, Delaney. It's good to be back.
Yeah. Yes. Well, the stage is all yours.
Fantastic. So there it is. Okay. Thank you. Well, I wanted to, by the way, did you want to do a poll question now, or do you want to do that later, Delaney?
Yes, we can do the poll right now.
Go ahead. I'll let you do that.
Okay. We'll share that live right now, guys. The poll is active. Have you started planning your year-end giving campaign yet? We want to know. Awesome.
There you go.
We're already up to 40%.
So if you want to get in, so they need to do this to be able to get eligible for the hat, right?
Yes, if they want this super cute hat. I saw that you guys were loving it. It says "Do More Good" on the front. I know it's like blurring my vision or whatever, but here it is. There we go. North Face, super cute. Answer the poll. Bring it over here. All right. Well, 74 answers in.
I'm actually shocked. I'm actually shocked that there's as many that are saying yes, that they've started planning. That's amazing. Hats off to you guys. No pun intended. Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to this. We did a similar webinar last year in October, and at that point realized it's kind of pushing it to get ready for year end. So looking forward to diving into this. Thanks, Delaney.
Yeah, no problem.
So one of the questions you might be asking yourself is, why are we talking about year end giving in June? But obviously, if you're on this call, if you're on this webinar, you understand that there's that it's coming quicker than you realize. We're already halfway through the year. For those of you that have a fiscal year that ends June 30, you're kind of wrapping up the fiscal year. And really there are three reasons why I think it's important to start soon, if you haven't started already. The number one is planning takes time, and the more time you have to plan, the better you're going to be, ready for the fall, ready for the year-end giving season. The second is creative takes time. Creative, the more you can get ahead of the creative assets and thinking about your message and your design and all of that, the better it's going to be. And we all know that things get busy, especially when we get through the summer. Things really pick up steam. So summer can be a great time to kind of get going on it. And then the final thing, reason is, as we get into this today, we're going to talk about some ways to kind of build momentum for the year-end giving season. And it doesn't just start in November. There's a lot of things that can be done now, actually engaging people and setting people up. And I'll talk about this, where it's going to all pay off in November and December. But if you don't do the groundwork now and kind of build that engagement now, you're not going to get the results you really want in the fall. And so, or in the end of the year. I want to just, before I dive into this, I want to just give a quick plug, and I'll do it at the end also, just to prepare yourself. At Leading Good, we everything that you see in this presentation today, in this webinar, is the work that we do at Leading Good. We work with organizations to help them develop strategy, to develop creative, to execute, to do everything that you see in this presentation. So if this feels a little like maybe you need some help, that's what we do. We work with some great organizations, large and small and medium. So I'll come back to that at the end when I kind of go through all this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's see here. Okay. So let's start by talking about results. Throughout this webinar, I'm going to feature two of our clients, two organizations that we work with, that I think, and the reason I'm featuring these is, I'll tell you why. Here's the reason why. Over the last 3 years, one of them is God's Love We Deliver, a great organization based in New York that delivers meals daily to people who are too sick to shop or cook for themselves. And so lots of people who are shut in or just they can't get the nutrition they need, and they do amazing work. So they're Metro New York, but they're expanding and doing some great work. So over the last 3 years, we've seen an average of 53. We've been working with them for now 4 years, and we continue to work with them year round, but also do their year-end giving. And I'm specifically going to be talking about digital fundraising during year-end. I'm not going to get into direct mail and major donors today. This is really about digital primarily. And we've seen an average each year for the last 3 years, a 53% increase in the giving, digital giving. And the same with Souls for Souls, a great organization based here in Nashville that is providing shoes and clothing to people in need, and also providing opportunities so people can sell some of these clothes and shoes in different countries and basically create a living for themselves. And we've worked with them. I've been working with them for now 3-4 years, and 51% average annual increase in digital year-end giving. And I'm going to tell you how that's worked and how it can work for your organization, whether you're large or small. So these are the elements that really make it work. And I'm going to go through these in different ways here, but it starts with a clear strategy. Messaging, I'm going to talk a bit about today, because messaging is really the foundation of your campaign and what you how you communicate to people. Because here's the deal with messaging: if you have, let's say you spend a bunch of money on advertising and you have great emails and you built this list, if your message doesn't connect, all of that work and all the money you've spent is going to be wasted, or a lot of it's going to be wasted, because you're really not connecting with people and getting them to engage. So we're going to talk about how do you get people to engage with clear and compelling messaging. We're going to talk about the planning process. I'm going to show you kind of behind the scenes of how we've done all of these things for these organizations. Talk about developing engaging creative assets, especially, we won't get into video too much today, but we'll talk about what we've done in terms of design and how we approach that. And then execution. It's all about execution. If you can do all these things, that's fantastic. But if you can't execute and really get it, that email's got to go out. It's got to be planned, written, designed. list all set up. It's got to go on a certain date. Executing according to the plan that you created, obviously, is a key. So we're going to go through each of these. So starting with strategy, when we talk about strategy, there's a couple different ways to think about this, but just kind of the basic elements of what is your, if you think of the different channels you have, and there's a lot more you could add to this, but if you think about the channels that you have to work with, especially when it comes to digital marketing, digital fundraising, how do you coordinate a multi-channel approach? And for us, that typically includes email, includes organic social media, and also includes paid social media advertising. And that's a big part. That last one is a big part that a lot of organizations are afraid of, or that say, we've tried that, didn't really work. So I'm going to talk to you about how we do that and how we make it really effective and what the results of that are. But really coordinating, there's other things in here too, right? Landing pages. You might want to coordinate your direct mail with your email. There's lots of different ways to approach this, but I want to break it down to the three most kind of core, simple parts of this, because if you can get these right, you're really going to have a chance for a really good success in your campaign. So the way that we approach this, and as we think about year end, I want to get very kind of tactical on some of this stuff so that you can think about how this might apply to your organization. But we typically look at this as 4 phases. And so this is looking back at 2021, last giving, year-end giving. And we typically break it down to, phase 1 is pre-Thanksgiving, so leading up to Thanksgiving. You could go further back than November 9th. We started last year, November 9th, typically with kind of most of our messaging and marketing. The part that is kind of pre all this is all the setup, right? This is just sort of when we're talking about the active campaign, the campaign being, out there. We have emails going out where we're delivering the creative assets that we've developed. So we have the pre-Thanksgiving portion of this. We have the Giving Tuesday, which is sort of, I kind of say Giving Tuesday starts the Black Friday through Giving Tuesday. So those 3 or 4 days are really crucial, and I'll show you some reasons why and the numbers that come out of those days. And then after Giving Tuesday, the pre-holiday, actually should be December 1st, for God's Love. They sell, they were founded out of the AIDS crisis, and so World AIDS Day is December 1st. So they kind of delay that a little bit to December 2nd, and really December 1st is a day of kind of commemoration and reflection. And then December 2nd through the holiday, through Christmas, is one phase, is the 3rd phase. And then another phase, which is probably the most important, and if you've probably seen this, is that last week of the year is when you can really get a lot of donations in, and it's the largest giving week of the year for most nonprofits. So really a critical time. So thinking about it in timing and phases is important. And the way we go from there is we think about what do we want to do with each of these phases. So if you can see here, this is kind of a little bit of a template of what we did last year with God's Love We Deliver. So we started our ad campaign, our pre-launch ads, what we call pre-wiring, which is we started digital ads October 12th. We're running digital ads throughout the year, but in October we're kind of pre-wiring, like starting to tease and get people engaged, not asking them to give yet, but getting them engaged and getting them where they are seeing some of these stories and really getting in the spirit of it. And then we launched the campaign. This year, we launched it a little bit later than October. We kind of started October 27th, but really it was most aggressively November 9th. But we, really leading up to Thanksgiving. And so we started with, what we call Celebrate with a Plate is the name of their campaign. And so that's what CWAP stands for, where we were kicking off the campaign with fresh creative, online ads, website updates, and email newsletter, and launched their first Facebook fundraiser. So we always did a Facebook fundraiser And we highlighted some different things. So each of these phases had very specific tactics that we had planned ahead of time. We want to, here's sort of the, obviously this isn't the specific plan, day by day, but this is sort of the highlights for each of these phases. So that was phase one. Phase two was really about, we wanted to have a matching gift offer for Giving Tuesday and World AIDS Day. So we definitely had a match that people, that large donors came in with. It was helped drive that success. And we asked our advocates, different volunteers, people like that, to and celebrity influencers and people, whoever we could, to post for us. Digital ads changed during that time. So before it was a lot about thanking people, and then during this period it became about giving, like give, strong, give now. We had a special story that went out during that time. And then during the mid-campaign, so that time, but that pre-holiday, we were doing different things. Our ads changed, and we had a new fundraiser. We had some different kind of things we engaged people with. And then that last period was really about another match, and really driving people to give. And I'm just telling you this as an example. You don't necessarily need to do it this way. Each organization has a little bit different vibe and different constituency. And so this is just an example of how we kind of planned ahead of time for each of these phases, and from a strategic standpoint. So that, and I'm going to come back to then how do we turn that into an actual plan. So this is really the strategy side of it. And I'll come back to how do we turn this into a plan in a minute. But before I do that, I want to talk about messaging, because the messaging side of what we do is, like I said, is super critical. We always have a need for a strong story, but we want to really crystallize a transformational story during the holiday season, not just a story of a person or a story of an event, but a story of what this campaign is all about, and what lives are being changed. And the way we always think about messaging is through the lens of story. We want to tell a transformational story that it's not about us as an organization, it's about the work that we do, and it's about the people that we help, and we're inviting donors to be part of that story. And so we want to tell a transformational story. And the way that we do that is, over the years, I've been doing this a long time, a number of decades. That I won't give away too much, but been doing this for 25 plus years. And over that time, really realized that there's actually a way to tell your story as an organization, and your story for a campaign or a program that kind of follows. There's an art and a science to it. So let me kind of break it down how we approach this. And we've developed a nonprofit messaging framework. It's called Your Story of Transformation. How do you think about your story? And this you can use this framework. We use this framework when we're talking about like the overall brand, but we use it also when we're thinking about what's the message for a certain campaign. So if you think about most really good stories, whether it's a book, a play, a movie, they have sort of three phases, right? There's you set up the main characters, and you set up the situation, and usually at the beginning of a story, you see that the main character or characters have a challenge, a problem, something that they need to solve. Like, it could be that there's something happens in the first part of the story that kind of sets the drama for the rest of the story, right? Now, then you get into phase two, or act two of the story, and typically the way, and I'm really simplifying this, obviously it's different for each story, but there's this kind of action phase where they're fighting the battle, or they're trying to win the girl, or they're trying to win the basketball tournament, whatever that action is, but it's trying to resolve that problem that is set up at the beginning of the story. And most of the story happens in this phase, and then at the end there's a resolution. Unless it's like a weird indie film that doesn't really have an ending, but those blockbusters. If you went to see Top Gun, you saw that it had a resolution at the end. There was Hollywood does a great job of tying these stories up in a knot, make you feel really good, like there's a great resolution, and tied up in a bow, and has a great resolution. And we want our story to do that too. So we like to say you follow the same template for telling the story of the work that we do and the lives that we're able to impact. And so each of these phases has different elements we want to make sure are included in how we talk about the work that we do and how we invite people into our story. And we start with, we're not necessarily starting this order, but we want to make sure these elements are included. And the first one is the problem. What is the problem that you're working to solve? Because if we talk about the problem and make sure that we explain it and talk about it from an emotional standpoint and talking about it from, how it's impacting people's lives, that produces empathy in our readers. Okay. So we have the problem. The next thing is the belief. And that's really an element. What is your core belief, your sort of universal human truth that drives you out of that problem? So for example, if the problem that you're solving or that you're working to solve is homelessness, right? The problem is not just that people don't have homes. It's that, what does it feel like to be without a home? They're working jobs, but they just can't afford. They got kicked out of their housing. The housing isn't affordable. They can't support their family. They're working as hard as they can. Kids don't have. They're moving around place to place. So that's the problem part of it. Just describing the feeling around and the impact around that problem. The belief is related to that is no. Here's an example. Like, no one should have to live without a permanent home. Like, everyone should feel like they have a place to belong. That's a belief that supports the problem. And when you have that, when you're able to express that belief, that can cut through a lot and really create connection with people. So a lot of times what the mistake that nonprofits make is they focus on how the work that they do and how they do it. We provide homes and we, temporary shelters and and all of that, instead of focusing on the belief, which is where people can really connect. You're up in the data, the facts around what you do, instead of at the heart. And this is the why of what you do. And people connect at the why level much more than they do at the how or the what level. So we want to start with that. At the core, what we're talking about is around the belief. I could go on and on about that, but this is one of the biggest parts. Like, what is your core human truth that everyone can agree with and say, yes, I believe in that, instead of getting caught up in the facts of, oh, why do they do this instead of why do they provide permanent housing instead of temporary housing? And, is that their best use? Just, really focusing on that belief, because that is what's going to connect people at the heart level. Then we go to the solution. What is that you do? How do you solve that problem? That's important to show, but really simplified. I like to think about what's the 3 steps that you do. People, we work with people. We connect with people who don't have permanent housing. We provide a temporary place for them, so they can feel at home, so they can feel settled, and we work with them to find a long-term solution. I just made that up, but that would be a 1, 2, 3. There's probably 1,000 things that you do as an organization, but how do you break that down to a clear, like 1, 2, 3 that people can mentally grasp? People love, the rule of 3 really works. And so breaking that down. And then we get into opportunity. Opportunity is what drives engagement. How can people, donors, be a part of what you do? We want to give them an opportunity so we're doing this. Here's how you can help. You give, we provide, right? Together, we come together and we provide these these homes or these shelters. Okay, so telling people directly how they can be part of the solution. When you give, $50, you can provide a night of shelter for a family that doesn't have a home. That's just another made up thing. But think about the opportunity that they then have, that the donor then has to be a part of this great solution. It's not just about you, it's about them. You're just facilitating this, right? And when we do that, what happens? There's impact. Lives are changed, communities are changed, just situations are transformed. We want to make sure we really spell that out for people. And that gives people hope. They want to be a part of something hopeful. And we want to then remove any barrier for them to give, right? We want them to trust us. So why should they trust you? Do you have, are you Guide Star? Do you have 4 stars on Charity Navigator? Do you have 15 years of experience helping 500 families? Like what are the kind of proof points? What are some testimonials you can use? So just to kind of remove any barrier. So I could spend all day talking about this, and I do sometimes. So I'm going to move on, but this is a framework you can use, and we use it when we work with our clients. And then we take that framework, we actually put it into the framework, and then we use it to create the messaging. And so when we work with last holiday season with God's Love We Deliver, this was our top line messaging, we called it. So this is before we put anything into an ad or an email. This was the main campaign messaging for their website and launch. We wrote all that out. And then we actually, if I opened this whole document in Google Docs, you would see it has different messaging for each of these phases. And then we actually create different messaging for each of the kind of things we're doing. So we create sample ads, just little bits of text and copy that can be used for different situations. And that stays consistent throughout the campaigns, throughout those phases and throughout the whole campaign, so that we know exactly what we want to say, and we can pull from this document when we're creating an email, when we're creating an ad, when we're creating something on the website, so or a social post. And this becomes a really key part of it, taking that messaging, put it into a key messaging document. And then one of the things kind of related to messaging is some organizations like to use themes, like a campaign theme, like Celebrate with a Plate for God's Love We Deliver. At Souls for Souls, it's I'll tell you in a minute, because it just slipped my mind. You'll see it come up. But you don't have to use a theme. You can just ask people to give, and you can do the whole campaign without having a theme. But having a theme that you come back with, a campaign sort of title and name, brand, that you come back to every year, creates some familiarity. And I would recommend doing it that way rather than creating brand new theme every year. That you can do that, but it's a lot of work, and it doesn't, part of, if you think of like St. Jude's, they have their Thanksgiving campaign, and they've been doing that for years, and it works, and it keeps growing. It's because people are ready, they recognize it, and I know what that is, and they want to give to it. So something to think about there. So I'm moving quickly through this because I want to make sure we have time for questions. Then we get into the planning phase. And when I talk about planning, we get very detailed well in advance of the giving season. And so this is just a snapshot. If I were to open this Google Doc and scroll right or scroll down, you would see for every day that we had something going out, we would identify the audience, what's happening out there. We got who are we talking to? What's the objective of this communication? A description of it, the subject line, the details that go into it. What's the call to action? If we're doing, you can see there's what says social retargeting. How are we backing that up with social media? We get into what landing pages it go to. There's more columns off to the right. What are we trying to measure? What are we trying to? And we keep track of the measurement on those. So I scroll down, you would see it goes all the way through December 31st. And so this kind of a campaign planner we create this well in advance. So when it comes time to creating social posts and creating emails, all the information is here. We're not starting from a blank page. We've taken that messaging, we've then taken it and put it into a plan. And you can see that not every communication, the purpose is not always to donate. We've got some of these are about engagement. Some of these a lot of them are about donating, but a lot of them are just about connecting with people, thanking people, And so each of those has a place. And so creating a real robust, detailed campaign planning document is something we do that really makes it easy. Once we get into go mode and we're executing, this becomes a lifesaver for us. All right. And then we talk about bringing it to life, and this is when we get into engaging creative. And I'm going to show you some examples of how we then take the messaging, take the ideas, and bring them to life. Okay, so for God's Love We Deliver, we create a custom landing page, and I don't know if you remember back when I showed you the key messaging, but that comes right with the messaging you're seeing here and here. And if I scroll down this page, you would see that messaging coming to life on the landing page. And having a special landing page for the campaign is important. Then we create the social ads in advance, the social, the organic social as well as ads, but I think these are more the organic ones. And so we get those designed in advance, and then retargeting. So one of the things that we do, and we work with clients, if you're scared of Facebook ads or Google network ads or display ads, that's something that we do, and we've had amazing success. I'm going to show you some of those numbers in a minute, and we love working with organizations. So these are some samples of kind of the things that we did, creating these ads and turning. So in this case, we're retargeting. So what that means is we can reach exactly who we want to reach with these ads. We can retarget people who have given in the past. We can upload our donor list, and we can into Facebook, and based on their email, we can find them online and they can actually see these ads on their Facebook, when they're in Facebook, when they're in Instagram, or when they're just surfing the web. They'll pop up on a website, so we can retarget them that way. We can also retarget based on how they've engaged with us. So I mentioned this before. Starting now, with what we're doing, we're engaging people year round on social with advertising, and we're getting donations along the way, but we're also just getting people to engage, to share, to watch, to comment. And when they do, that's called engagement. And we can go back in November, or for example, and say, anyone who's engaged with us, who's liked or shared, we want to go back to them with an ad and ask them to donate. And so that's what we call retargeting. There's a couple different ways we can do it. We can get very specific based on geography, based on how much they've, different factors come involved there. So we do retargeting ads, and then email campaigns, that same kind of creative approach, but really simple, clear emails. Not every email has to have a ton of text. A lot of the emails that we send are just really simple and clean and a little bit of text, but often, every once in a while we'll do a longer kind of story, but sometimes simple is better and less is more. And let me show you a couple from Souls for Souls. So the joy you give, sorry, I missed that earlier. The joy you give is the name of the campaign that we do for Souls. And we also do something on Giving Tuesday. We turned it into Giving Shoes Day. We started that. You can see we call it Giving Shoes Day instead of Giving Tuesday. So we built on that. So these are some of the top performing emails, and you can see these are a little longer, but these did really well. So it depends on your audience and what really works for them. We test different things. And then some of our top performing ads, we use the joy you give, and try different things. We'll test dozens and dozens of ads to see what's working, what people engage with. And these were some of the top performing. And when I say top performing, let me kind of show you what I'm talking about. So for example, last holiday season, we had, so let me explain some of these terms. Immediate ROI, actually return on ad spend. So if we spent, it was 2.4x for the November and December of last year, which means if we spent $1,000 on ads, we got $2,400 back in donations. If we spent, $100,000 on ads, we got, $240,000 back on ads. And some, depending on the size of the organization, that's, we're spending that kind of money. It could be $1,000, could be $100,000, depending on how much, and you can work your way up to that. But we see that kind of response because we're working that, building up to the year end. And then we actually, on Giving Tuesday, saw an 8.7x ROI. So for every dollar that we invested or that we spent on ads on Giving Tuesday, we got $8.70 back on donations. So we can track all of that. And then if you look at lifetime value, so LTV is lifetime value. When we think about it in terms of a monthly giver, we also brought in monthly giving without even really trying to. Some people would give monthly, and so we know how long people stay monthly donors, and it depends on the organization, but it might be 2 years or it might be 5 years based on, we can calculate that. We can calculate after a year based on attrition rates. We know the average person is going to be there X number of years. So if you include the lifetime value of those monthly donors, the actual average that we got is closer to 4 times. For every dollar, we got about 4 times back. So really strong results. And I'm a big believer that if you're not doing, I'm a big believer in Facebook ads. And when I say it's not just Facebook, but it's that ad network that you can really leverage to grow your campaign. So just a couple more things, and we're going to wrap it up. The last thing I want to say is, I mentioned execution. All of this is really important, and you can see maybe why now it's important to start early. If you're going to develop a plan that's that detailed and that kind of creative and have all that spelled out, the earlier you start, the better, so that when you hit October, November, you're in this mode. You're in execution mode, and you and your team, you can divide and conquer it, and have someone, or if you don't have a team like that, use someone like Leading Good, shameless plug, to help execute this. We do all of it from start to finish if needed. And so I'm going to take some questions now. And I also want to just mention, if we can help you with your year-end giving, we'd love to talk to you about it. You can email me directly at rod@leadinggood.com. You can go to leadinggood.com and look around and set up a time for us to talk. But would love to be able to help you and your organization if you're in need of that. So I don't know, Delaney, if you're there, but I'm ready for some questions.
Absolutely. There's a lot of really good questions. First of all, thank you so much for sharing all of that, Rod. Alexander, I think just to kick us off on questions, I'll do something that's fresh in our minds. Alexander wanted to know if the ROI that you were sharing included all of the paid advertising that led to likely retargeting.
No. So that was just that was during the November, December. Those were the results from November and December. However, we do look at it for the whole year as well. And we get, even when we're, building up, like say we're building up in July, August, September, October, and getting ads and placing ads that are really around engagement, we're always getting donations. So when we look at the year overall, we always have a positive ROI. It probably isn't quite that high. It's typically, but we're not losing money on ads. So we're maybe getting like 1.8 or 1.5 or 2, depending on the organization, for the year overall. But during that year-end giving season, it jumps up. So we were able to see a positive, and I'll just say this, it doesn't always happen immediately. You've got to take the time to build that momentum and really learn. You learn a lot about your audience. So take some time to invest. The earlier you start, though, if you start now, like let's say you did a 6-month period of, we're going to see what we can do. Now would be the time to start, so that when you get to year end, you're not just kind of going in cold. You've got some warm engagement.
Mm-hmm. Valerie said that they are a completely volunteer-based organization with extremely limited funds available for fundraising. With this in mind, what would you prioritize your funding on?
Yeah, good question. I think if you're really, are you saying funding, like how they spend their money, or how they
I'm
say that question
assuming
again?
for year-end fundraising strategies.
Like how to spend their money on year-end fundraising, or how to
I'm
what they should
assuming,
ask
or
for?
should they focus it, or should they even focus it on year-end campaigns?
Yeah, I would say year-end campaign typically. Oh, I see. I'm reading it here. I'm sorry, I didn't see it before.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so you're saying limited funds. I would say, yeah. I mean, for sure, year-end campaign is typically the best time to invest for organizations, because that's when people are prone to give. And you know, one thing I would say is, if you're not, if you're, it depends on what you're doing already. So it's a hard question to answer, but I would say make sure you have you're building a strong email list, and you really have your messaging down, right? If you start there, you can build on that. But and of course, you have to have a website that works. If you're doing a lot of advertising, for example, or sending emails, and people land on your website and they're confused and it's hard to donate, that's going to be, you're going to be wasting your time and money. So it's a start to finish thing. And I would start from the end goal first. Make sure your website's good. Your donation platform is really easy to use. You've got the right messaging and right creative, and then go backwards, right, to email. And then eventually, maybe you can do advertising on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tim asked what the difference was between strategy and planning, i.e., is strategy part of planning?
Strategy sets the stage for planning. So strategy is thinking about, okay, if you remember back to those 4 phases I had, for example, here's what we want to do, basically each of those phases. And kind of, we want to ask people to start Facebook fundraisers, or we want to have a matching gift, kind of thinking about those from a strategic standpoint. And then planning is that document where I showed you, where it's like every single communication is listed out of, on this date, we're sending this email with this purpose, with this subject line, this call to action, here's the content. It's much more detailed and tactical than strategy, which is bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Brittany said, regarding timing and strategy, would you recommend actual giving campaign?
A priming campaign prior to the actual? Yes, definitely. I think whether that's, you call it priming, we call it pre-wiring. It's basically it's a pre-campaign where you're getting people warmed up. So with advertising, that looks like, certain kinds of ads. You're not making big asks like donate now. That's not the message. The message is thank you. The message is, here's some amazing stories. Look what you've done. It's a way to really engage people. And then you move into asking them to give again, or ask them to give. So yeah, definitely that is the right approach.
Yeah. Okay. Lisa's question was, did you have a sample of the digital ad for God's Love We Deliver? And I do think that was these.
Those are digital ads. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, those are
so
ads.
Lisa,
Yeah.
Hopefully you saw those. And you will get the slides too. So Deb said, what do you think about local Giving Tuesdays that come earlier? Do you do one or the other, or weave them into your campaigns?
Yeah, I don't know how every city does it. Some cities do it like kind of the opposite time of year, like May or June or something like that. Some do it, I'm not sure exactly how they're all doing it, but I think those are important. Those can be helpful. And it probably kind of depends to how local you are as an organization, how well you're known locally. Some organizations are national, some are local. So if you're a local organization, you can identify your local constituency. Yeah, do that. I would probably do it separately. Just build it around, here in Nashville, it's in May, right? So it's really, we could focus locally. But the Giving Tuesday that happens after Thanksgiving is the big one, typically, and where we get everyone's engaged. And if you do that one right, that can be a big payoff. So I would probably if you have another let's say your local Giving Tuesday is in June or something like that, you could build a little campaign around that, and that's part of it, but it would be separate, obviously, from your year-end campaign.
That makes sense. Miranda has a good question. What do you think about the idea that if you include your accomplishments in your appeals, it takes away from the sense of urgency needed to drive giving?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think that there's a way to do it, though. Think about it like, let's say you tell a story of Charlie who you helped, and I think the way I would do it, rather than say we've done all these things, like list all these facts and data, I would do it more around telling a story, because what that does is it proves that it's transformational work, and you can say, with your help, we can help more people like Charlie, right? So I think there's a way to do it that is not, but you have to be careful about talking about your accomplishments, because it's like, look at us, look at us, look at us. What I really love to do is say, look at you. Look, donors, look what you did. You changed this life, and you can change more lives. And so when you use the we, the term, the word we, make sure it's a collective we. It's not like we, our organization, it's we as a community, we as donors, and working together. Here's what we were able to do, and with your help, we can do more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard to always review your emails for how many times you use the word we. I think that it's always interesting to see how much we fall on that.
And if you're wondering, use the word together. Together we X, right? Like, I think that's a better way to do it than just, we about us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Becca said this is a fractious election year with heightened social and political turmoil, as well as anxiety-inducing inflation. For your clients, are you recommending additional strategies regarding the messaging and timing of the appeal? Your advice is excellent, but this year feels different from others in terms of fundraising.
Well, unfortunately, I said take a deep breath, because she's right. It's a very stressful time, but it feels like it's been that way for a while now. Even in 2020, I mean, we had that really crazy election. We still saw people giving. We still saw people really engaging. So the biggest challenge, I think, is sometimes, you have to fight for attention, and maybe you think about those days. So if there's certain days like election day, if that's early November or whatever it is, you don't want to stay away from some of those days and kind of plan around those. But I do think keeping to your plan, we're also talking about inflation, and that brings up recession. One of the things that you'll see if you look at data from the past years is that the organizations who stick to their plan do well in a recession. They just continue to do what they do, and people are familiar and want to give. I don't think you need to throw everything out the window. I do think it's, I just think if you stick to your plan and be sensitive of certain days, and be sensitive, and you can even identify with some of the inflation. So for example, if you're working with underserved populations, talk about how inflation is affecting them. Like they can't even afford to do X anymore, or whatever that is, right? So I wouldn't drastically change your approach. I just think it's actually not that different in terms of other years. I mean, we've had political turmoil a lot of years in recent memory, and we've had financial difficulties in recent years and over the last 20 years. And you can look at that data and show that people still give during those times.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bill says, do you suggest any particular empathetic messaging about the current inflationary economy and a reluctance to donate, or an inclination to donate less than they're given in the past?
I personally wouldn't. I wouldn't put that thought in their mind. Again, I just kind of hit that. I think it's, one way to do it is, it's been a tough year for all of us. But imagine how much tougher it is for the people that we're helping. That's just one example. I don't know what kind of work you do. and it's very different if you're helping the homeless or you're helping, you're trying to get people to support the arts. Those are very different kind of things. But I think acknowledging it's been a tough year. Times are tough for all of us, but your help is needed now more than ever is a way to kind of tie that together.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We have a couple more questions and a couple more minutes. Stephanie said that they don't have the capacity, staff or funds to do all of the creative that you suggested. What might you think, or what might you say is the most important?
I'm a huge believer that the messaging, it all starts with messaging. So get the messaging right. If you even look at some of the most effective ads and things like that, it's really, the pictures are really helpful, but there's also, and that's like one picture, doesn't have to look this pretty. A picture with the right message can go a long ways and be very successful. So get that messaging, think about that story transformation. You'll have it sent to you. Think about, are you getting on that belief? Are you hitting on, really giving people opportunity, showing them the impact. If you get your messaging down and have, even if you don't have the best photos, having some photo there can make can really still work, be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Stephanie, I don't know if you, in terms of creative ads and things like that, Canva is free for nonprofits to use. And we have a whole session on like basic design strategy and things like that with Canva's nonprofit expert. And that's on our website as well, if you want to check that out. Heather said they're wrapping up a capital campaign at the end of the summer. Do you have any thoughts on transitioning back to annual giving?
Yeah, the main thing I would say is make sure when you end that, you celebrate it and you thank people for a good solid couple of months, and just give them warm fuzzies, tell them stories about the work and how much a difference is making before you go back into annual giving. But I think you should not shy away from annual giving. Just make sure that there's a period of letting people breathe a little bit before you go back to end of year, because people are still prone to give end of year. They might not. Typically, capital campaigns, and I don't know your story, but are targeting more larger donors, and you can also focus your year-end campaign on $20 gifts and $50 gifts and $80 gifts, so that really have an impact on the programming side of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, probably one or two more. Sam said, can you speak a little bit about the challenge of converting social media followers into donors, and what have you found makes the biggest impact?
Yeah, good question. Because of social media, the way Facebook algorithm changes all the time, most of your organic posts don't get seen by your followers. It's just the truth. They want you to pay to be able to get in front of your own followers, which we can talk about that another time. Not thrilled with that whole model, but that's what it is. So advertising works, and you can retarget that group specifically. So one of the ways you can do with social media advertising, you can do boosted posts if you want to, but the advertising platform is different than that, and it can really target those people. And you can also then use your current followers and create lookalike audiences. So let's say you have 1,000 or 5,000 followers. You can target them, and you can also say, Facebook, show me another 10,000 people who look a lot like them. They have the same interests, same demographics, and so on, and they can find more for you. So I think social media advertising you can definitely boost some posts, but I think the advertising works better. We've seen it just work better because you can do more with your ads, like you see on these, where you can put a donate button. You can really really target those specifically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe if we can get to this one and honor everyone's time still. Casey said we are a scholarship fund that will be awarding scholarships in the fall. How can we motivate year-end donors when we don't have an imminent goal to point to, given that our main gifts have already been given for the year?
The one first thing that comes to mind, two things. One is, what's your belief statement? What do you believe about these, like, um, you know, about these people you're helping? Like, every student deserves X, or, what's your belief statement? Because people can relate to that. And then um, maybe it's a matter of talking less about the scholarships this fall and talking about building the fund, and think about the individual students that you're supporting rather than the distribution of those funds. So help more people like whatever name, Susie, help more students like John get the help they need. Just focus on the individuals rather than the execution of how you're distributing those funds. And that gets into that whole idea of, like, don't get caught up in the facts, stick to the emotional side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also would think that if you're rewarding them in the fall, that whole year and period is like a period of celebration, right? Like, these people just got scholarships for them.
Yeah, and you could help more people like this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that wraps up our time, everyone. Rod, thank you so much. If you didn't get your question answered, feel free to reach out to us at info@nonprofithub.org. We'll do our best to get back to you. Thank you to everyone who joined us for today's session. Huge thank you to the team over at Neon One for being the sponsor of today's webinar. And thank you to our platform partner, FireSpring. Keep an eye out for the full recording and a full list of resources, as well as the slides that will be sent later today. And a member of the Do More Good team will contact the winner of today's webinar for their Do More Good baseball cap. Thanks again, Rod. Please enjoy your day, and see you next time, everyone.